If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet. I must tell you I'm excited today. We've got a female member of the army here, or a former one at least. She comes from a military family. We do know her father very well, but she can introduce him herself once she wants to do so. Her name's Antonet Coetzer. Now this is interesting because my wife Rebecca says there's only 3 surnames in South Africa. It's Coetzer, Coetzer or Coetzer. She's convinced there's nothing else because all the people I know falls in that bracket. But we will do our best to convince her there's van der Merwe as well, and other people. But anyway, Antonet, thank you for your time. We're really grateful for you. You've been waiting months to speak to us. We booked them ahead so far these days, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know you're married to an army man himself, former Special Forces member. It seems to me to be in the family. But can you tell me, where do you come from? How did you end up in the army? Tell us about your childhood a bit.
Yes, thanks, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity. My father actually coerced me into this interview. But yes, so of course, yes, I come from a military family. I'm a PF child in nurture and nature, if I can say it like that. So I was born in Pretoria. My parents actually stayed in Oudtshoorn at the time, and my father was there at infantry school. So as you know, he's CJ Borman. He was a former brigadier general of the National Defence Force. And so they stayed in Oudtshoorn, and my father was on course as they do during that time, as they were continuously. He was on course in Pretoria, and my mom went to go and visit my grandmother, and I decided to come in that time. So it's actually a funny story. My father was sitting outside the delivery room, actually studying for the next day's tests and assignments and assessments, while my mother was in the delivery room. So I was born in Pretoria, and then we moved around quite a lot. My early childhood years were actually, we grew up in interesting places. I can remember we stayed in Bergslaag, we stayed in Phalaborwa, and as we spoke of before as well, just you speak to the people that were in the military self, but from a family perspective, one memory that I can remember from Phalaborwa specifically was my father was still on another course in Pretoria again, and then what I can remember was my mom, he left that Sunday afternoon. So Sunday afternoons were never very good in our house because we cried because our father left. And she was sorting out her cupboard or something like that. And the only thing that I can remember my mom saying was, never marry a military guy. So she was crying and saying, never marry. And I was probably 2 or 3 years old, but till this day I can remember it. Not that I actually listened to her advice, but I'll tell that a bit later. So yes, and then we moved to Oshakati in the northern Namibia. And there we had awesome memories. We played and we were allowed to be kids. There were always helicopters in the air. There were always mortars shooting, exercises at night, but that put us to bed. That were our comforting noises. We never had a lullaby. We had mortars and, helicopters flying in and out and so forth. So we always laughed at our cousins that came to visit us there, because that first evening, they were always told, oh, you're going to the border, and oh, it's a war and all of that. And that first night, they never slept in their own beds. They ended up with their parents because they were so scared of the noises. And that was actually our lullabies that put us to bed. Just to sketch that picture of how we can adapt and how we can normalize things that for other people might be terrifying. So what I can remember during that time, we always loved to play in the bomb shelters. That were like our fondest places. And what was so nice is two houses joined a bomb shelter. So we never had to climb over a fence to go and play with our friends at our neighbor's house. We just walked across the bomb shelter. So that was, all through the bomb shelter. So that was also very fond memories. We played in the sand and in climb trees and all of that. What I can also remember that should have terrified us, but it actually didn't, was the one day I was still in primary school and or actually preschool. We were playing outside in the sandbox, and apparently one of the terrorists escaped, and he came running through our school. And he came running through and everybody was chasing him, and they just shouted to all of us, just go down, slaan plat. And we just went down, and they shot him in his leg while he was climbing over the fence to try to escape. And we looked at this thing and we all just went, oh, okay. And we went on playing. So it was, oh, this is what happened, but it didn't traumatize us. It's not that I can think of a scare, that it scared us. It was just part of who we were at that point in time. So in a sense, as children, I think we were a lot desensitized to what actually happened at the war. I think our parents actually did a cracker job of not bringing that atmosphere into our homes. I think I must salute the people. I must salute my father and the people that were actually actively in the war at that point in time, for not actually bringing it to home. Whether it was a good thing psychologically, today, me being an adult, I don't think so. A lot of people say, some of them went quite haywire, but I think for us, in bringing us up, in making the most of when they are at home, spending quality time with us, I think I must salute them. They did a cracker job. Even from my mother's side as well, she never let us to believe that she was traumatized or, waiting for her husband to come. Later years, we would hear some of the stories, but, they were so strong. And I think just from our culture point of view, the women walking over the Drakensberg barefoot that you hear of, I think that's what's instilled in us till this day through our culture. And so we grew up carelessly. We grew up in such loving homes, and I'm generalizing now, but that's my experience of our home as well as my friends' homes. We grew up, we had a wonderful childhood. What I can remember is a helicopter flying in was always, especially at evening time, was always a good time for us, because then we would know my father's coming home. He's coming home for the weekend. But the one time, apologies. So so a helicopter was always a welcoming noise. We would always know, especially at evening times, we would know that when they come in, that they're bringing my father home. He's coming home, especially over a weekend. And the one time the helicopter came in and we heard a huge bang. And it was, we were expecting my father, and he didn't come through. And I can remember my mom phoning, and because she was expecting my father to come through at that time. So there was a helicopter that flew into a fence or something, if I can remember correctly. But luckily, my father was not on that one. He was on the second one. So that was actually one of the few instances that I can remember, feeling scared or apprehensive or what's going to come next. So you're just in saying that we moved around a lot. I want to reiterate that the people always said, okay, so you coming from a military family, so you must be dumb because you moved schools and you must have broken furniture. So I want to say, no, that's not it. I can't say about the dumb, we all managed to be quite successful in our careers and all of that. So I can't really say I'm the dumb. Somebody else must comment on that. But it made us adaptable. It made us agile. It made us change agents, if I can say it like that. We in a fly, we can act on change, and we react to change so well. So that's also one of the positive things of being a child, growing up in a military family. I can make friends with anyone in any queue, in Pick and Pay or Checkers or anywhere, home affairs, wherever I am. I can start a chat with somebody brand new that I don't know. And my kids always ask me, do you know that person? And then I say, no, I don't know them. But that's something that I was taught from a very early age, is to make new friends, to embrace the new, or to embrace change. So I just wanted to lie that thing to bed of broken furniture and dumb children. No, it actually made us very good, how can I say, adaptable children, or adaptable citizens, if I can say it like that. What it also made us, and I see that with my sisters as well, we can't live very long in one place. so if you're there around 3-4 years or 5 years, then we start to get itchy. It's time to move again, So I've seen that with my sisters and myself as well. We currently stay at, it's actually the longest that I stayed in one place, and we're going 9 years now. But it made us, and we can move in an instant. We know how the process works. My mom had an awesome process for us to move, and packing and being effectively, in setting up a new home. That I must salute her for as well, and all the other women. Like we spoke of before as well, behind all these successful military people were a strong family, a strong wife, and I can really say, hats off to them. All my mother's friends as well. We have very good friends that were in the Air Force, and how they talk of how they set up sessions with women, and how they taught them to be the head of the home, and how to make good decisions and how to cope. So nobody taught them. There were not Zoom sessions or training sessions or classes that you could attend. They had to make do with what they did. But I think they formed a very close community. I think if you have a session with some of the the wives of the successful people that you interviewed, you will hear that story, how they, their friends became their family, how they supported each other. And that I can really give testimony to. My mom was a teacher, so yes, every time we moved, she had to start her career all over again, but she was so good in that. And within that, she taught from grade 1 to matric. She taught music, she taught accounting, although her background were more home economics and natural sciences. She taught everything and everyone. And she made a new home. She's also a very avid gardener. So every time, wherever we came, she made a garden. Even if it's in Oshakati in the sand, my mom made a garden. She made a home and she made a garden. So that's also something that I can really give testament to. A funny story, we moved from Oshakati, we moved to Kimberley. So first of all, that first winter, we nearly thought we're going to die. We outgrew all our winter clothes, that where we came from. And so I think, first of all, my parents were bankrupt, just, getting us clothed and getting us warm that first winter. And that first day at school, so in Oshakati, there was a siren. And if you hear that siren, no matter how old you are, if you hear that siren, you go into the bomb shelter. So funny enough, nobody thought to inform us. So our first day at school in Kimberley, my parents thought, you know what, you are very, how can I say, mature children. So you will go on the bus that first day to school. So we did that and we ended up at school. And then when the bell rang, their bell, to give note that the day is starting, that bell sounded exactly like the siren in Oshakoti. So when that bell rang for school to start, me and my sister looked at each other and we said, where's the bomb shelter? We have to get to the bomb shelter. And I was in grade 2 at that stage, and my sister was in grade 4. So yeah, we were still so small. And luckily, one of our friends, they moved there earlier. The girl's name was Ruby. She said, relax, relax, that's a school bell. And luckily she was there, because I think we would have looked for the bomb shelter until today. So you know what? So yeah, nobody thought of telling us or thinking about it actually, but yeah, that just made us more resilient in the end. We had very fond years in Kimberley as well. Still to that day, we stayed opposite the Jack Hendon officers' mess. And my father was very much involved in the mess and the, you know, everything there as well. So he would always, like after work, he would always go and see what's happening in the mess. I think he just went past the bar and had a quick beer, if I think back today. But then he would always send us a Coke and a packet of salt and vinegar chips. So whenever I have that combination, it just still takes me back to that childhood old memories. Our dogs didn't like the waiter that came with a tray, you know, to our house to bring us that. They did never like the waiter. And I think some of them still have scars today. But that was such a fun memory. We played there. We actually, it was like staying in how can I say, like a kid's heaven when we stayed there, because there were tennis courts, there was a swimming pool. We still to this day fond memories of pomegranates. Next to the swimming pool, there were a lane of pomegranates, and when they ripened, you know, we would go there to the swimming pool, sit on our towels in the sun and eat pomegranates. And till this day, you know, that's also a fond memory of me. We had such good memories. We could beat children there. We drove our bikes. We fell off our bikes there because it was quite a steep downhill to the swimming pool. And then eventually they put a bump in the road. I think people were chasing up and down there, maybe the officers or the people that stayed around the mess. But yeah, so we fell off and we got back up and all of that. From Kimberley, we moved to Messina. And, you know, the first time I can remember when my parents told us we're going to Messina. And we were like, Messina, where's Messina? And my mom said, no, it's not the product Messina, it's Messina. Well, today the name changed again, it's Musina. But, and we had to go and look on the map, you know, and we saw, oh, well, we're in the north again. You know, from Oshakoti, we're going north again. And we were looking forward to the weather because Kimberley was quite extremes, especially the winter time. And still to this day, I'm not fond of the winter and getting cold. But yeah, so we moved to Messina. That was quite a big move because it was provinces in terms of school, you know, and the work we did and all of that. But yeah, I can remember my elder sister were not that fond to move because she already started high school. And she was actually at the stage, you know, asking my parents, can't she stay behind in Kimberley? And then my father said, you know what, do you know the distance that we are going from here? And I think she's glad she went there because she met her husband there as well, a boerseun, you know. So, and I also met my husband there. So Messina was very good for us. In Messina, yeah. So I started my the year before high school. I was at Messina and then went luckily for me, I didn't have to change schools in high school. So I was there from grade 8 till grade 12 or standard 6 to matric at that point in time. And fond years. My high school years were your happy times. That's one thing that you'll see the thread through my life, you know, being a military child was happy years. If I think back, I can just remember happy memories. Yes, my father were gone a lot, you know, and he would come and go to the nature of what he did. But I can remember, you know, so many fond memories. So you're in Messina, we were also quite naughty, and you said you're going to ask me about this. So my father, being a very practical person, like you would have heard, he decided it was time for my elder sister. So I'm in the middle. So just to explain, so I've got a sister that's 2 years older than me, and I've got a sister that's 2 years younger than me. 2 years, 2 months. So being a military guy, they planned it quite well. Yeah. So no, I think that's just a chance. But so my elder sister had to start, learning to drive. And my father decided, you know what, in 2 years' time, he's going to be at the same point again, and then after 2 years again. So he decided he will teach the three of us together. Once off, he will teach us and get it done, and then everybody can drive. So there was a dirt road, a gravel road that led to the cemetery. I'm not sure if there's any superstition in that, but that's where we learned to drive. So it was quite a safe road. So he taught my sister. And so by the time that I was around standard 8, grade 10, I could drive completely. And the same for my younger sister. So by the time she was starting high school, she could drive. So my parents always, when they had to go to parades or functions or whatever in Pietersburg, or today it's called Polokwane, or wherever they had to go, he always organized somebody to come and look after us. And at a stage, we really had to convince my father that we are big enough to look after ourselves. And we stayed in Messina. What can go wrong? So the first time that we managed to convince my father that we are big enough to look after ourselves, we actually ended up having friends over that was in hostel at the time. So staying in Messina, we had a lot of friends, parents who farmed in Zimbabwe. So a lot of them actually could only go home like once in a quarter, when it was a big holiday, or just in July and then December. So we had a lot of them come stay over at our house during weekends and holidays, if it's just a short holiday or stuff like that. So the first thing that we did we thought, you know what, let's go and fetch our friends. They are in hostel, and let's go and fetch them. So we had to drive there, because who's going to walk? It was not a long way, but who's going to walk? So my younger sister saw where my father put the keys to his Mercedes-Benz at that time, where he hid that, and she was very quick with that. So she said, "Oh, I know where's the keys." And we just said, "Okay, well, perfectly." So we grabbed the keys, and then took the Mercedes, and we drove to the hostel. I don't know, it's probably 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. And we fetched our friends, but it didn't end up just fetching our friends. And now you must also remember, we had to, if they go out of the hostel, they needed to be signed out. So who ever thought about that process? We just called them and said, "Come, we're fetching you, you're coming with us." So, so that's the second infringement there, was we didn't sign them out. We took them, and we took them through the whole town of Messina, and we drove around everywhere that we could. And we thought we were very, very good, and very mature for us driving around in my father's Mercedes. We went through the scenic route that day. And we just, gracefully put the Mercedes back where it was on its place. And it was a Friday evening, and my parents returned the Saturday. So nobody were none the wiser of what we did the previous evening. And unfortunately for us, we didn't we didn't think about the smallness of Messina and the fact that they would know this Mercedes. So the next day at the church, it was actually the hostel's headmaster that actually said to my father, "Do you know what happened on Friday evening?" So first of all, he realized some of the hostel kids were not in their beds. And second of all, he looked out of the window, and there was this Mercedes picking them up, and he noticed the number plate, and he knew exactly where it was coming from. So it was not a good time for us after church that Sunday. And needless to say, we never ever could find the keys again after that. So no, that's just a funny story about Messina. Yeah, we had very, very fond years. Um, I couldn't decide. My sister went to the medical services. She studied through them, so she did physiotherapy through them. But I, at the time, couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to be an actress, but my father, being a very practical person, said to me, no, 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 no. One day when you earn your own money, you can study for that. Just get something behind your name so that you can have a career and earn money. So I didn't know what to do. And then I opted to go to Salford. And actually, that was an awesome decision. If I look back, it was one of the best decisions that I could make. I was very much clinged to my mom's skirt, if I can say it like that. So just to relate back, you know, our three sisters and my mom were actually very, very close because my father was not always around. We were a very close-knit unit. So if I stayed with where my parents were, I would have actually never severed that tie, if I can say it like that. Not that it's a bad thing, but for me, it was a very good thing. So at the end of when I finished matric, my parents then moved to Pretoria. And you can now follow my father's career within this, me saying the places. I don't always keep track of where he went to, what position or what rank he had at that time. So this is just my perspective. But then they moved to Pretoria, but then I went to George to Salford that year in 1995. So yeah, it was a big change for me. Being, going from always being at home, never being in a hostel, to now all of a sudden, you fly out and then you're gone. It's not as today where we have cell phones and we can speak to each other or WhatsApp or whatever. It was still ticky box, and whenever I wanted to talk to my parents, I had to wait for my turn and find them on the ticky box. So yeah, but it was a very good thing for me. I think it was a very big step in helping me to mature as well. As I say, I was a bit of a rebel when I was at school. Just to go one step back, we spoke the other night about, when was our last hiding that we got. So my parents were very strict. They were very strict, and they brought us up, with discipline and within boundaries and all of that. But not too strict. They allowed us, as you can hear, they allowed us some freedom as well. So, but I just took the hand at one point in time. I just grabbed the hand. And then, when you summons to the formal sitting room, in our Afrikaner culture, we have our TV room or whatever where we can now just be. But then you had the dominee's sitting room where you had the dominee over. So when I was summoned to that sitting room, I knew, okay, well, this must be serious. And then my father just sat me down and he said to me, you know what? This is my house. This is our rules. If you want to stay in this house, you will abide by these rules. And you know what? It's not that fun if you sever it from the purse as well. So then you will have no freedom to go with your friends and to, go to places. So I think you better get into line because this is my house and my rules. And I think it was a very good thing. I had to make some serious decisions, and I decided, well, you know what? It's good for me to stay in this house and abide to these rules. So yeah, but then going to Salford, then you're away, and all of a sudden it's 1,400 kilometers apart. You can't just go home wherever you feel like it. But it was a good thing for me. It was a very good thing for me. I don't want to say I rebelled against the military aspect of it. I think I was just more of a free thinker, if I can say. But that brought me, it just brought me back to a place of discipline and of doing things in a certain way, auditing, just how you think about life. what was interesting for us, for our intake in 1995, it was obviously after 94, after that big election, that was during my matric year. And then they decided, well, you know what, women will not be trained differently than men would. And that was the first year that we had to do exactly the same training program that the guys did at Heidelberg when they went there. So yes, so we started off having exactly the same training. But you must remember, they did not take away the identity that the women's college had. They did not take away the essence of what the women's college had. So they just added this, how can I say, element on top of what we did there. So we still sang, we still had choirs and singing groups, and we still had our sport, and we still had to present ourselves as women in the military. I can remember I sometimes became so irritated with the fact that we would be in Oudtshoorn at infantry school having full weapons training, but we still had to have red lips. So I was so irritated with that, because I felt like, you know what, why? I have to camouflage my face, but I had to put lipstick on. So, in my nature, I sometimes rebelled a bit against that. I can remember the one time we decided that we will buy the cheapest, reddest lipstick that there can be on this earth, and that when we go out to the bush, we will put that red lipstick on. So, and it was that, luckily it was the type that would stick for the whole day, so we never had to worry about lipstick ever again. But that's just to showcase the fact that they kept their identity. And looking back today, it was a good thing, because I had to remind us that although we are in the dust, leopard crawling, and putting on our war paint and all of that, we were still women. And I think a lot of challenges also came in with our uniform. They had to adapt, but our uniform at that point in time didn't really adapt. I can remember that I always had to wear ski pants under my pants, because when we leopard crawl and George having 4 seasons in one day, you would go out and it'd be sunny, and all of a sudden it would rain. Then you leopard crawl through the mud. Then sometimes my pants would get be stuck behind me, and I would crawl through them. So I think just in terms of uniform, they haven't thought through it. So for our intake that year, it was actually an interesting intake. I think there was a lot of lessons learned, and they saw that they had to make it practical for women in uniform as well. But what Salford stood for, and the discipline and women in uniform, they kept that. And I just want to reiterate that. I'm saying that a lot, but if I look back, that is actually what formed us. Because at some point in time you think, well, women, we can do everything, we can do anything, we can multitask, we can do everything, but actually we can't. You can only focus on one thing, but you can do multiple things in multiple ways as long as you keep your identity. And I think Salford was very, very good at that. With us keeping our identity, keeping for what we stand for, keeping for the discipline, but in womanhood. I can remember, as women, we cried a lot, and Sunday evenings were our crying sessions, because then once again, you would come back from a past weekend or something, that you were let out of the cage, and so somebody would start crying in their room while we're preparing for the next day, for the week, and our rooms had to be perfect and all of that. And then somebody else would come in, and we would just have one big pity party. But then, we dried our tears, and the next morning we were sharp and going again. So yeah, it was interesting, but it was also very fascinating to always also get to know different kinds of weapons. Shooting with different type of weapons. We were exposed to all of that, and I think the previous intakes that they weren't as much. We went to Lohatla for a whole week. We were exposed to so many weaponry and so many, other things than just shooting with an R4 and a 9mm. so that also was a very awesome experience for me. Thinking back, it was cold, it was not that comfortable sleeping in a trench, all of those type of things, but we just had to make it work. So yeah, so there were so much fond memories as well in that year. We made friends for life, and one thing that I can remember from Soul Calls, we always sang about it, and in saying that is we were always singing. Even when we did Bible study, or wherever we went, we were always singing. And with women, we sang in voices, and it was always beautiful. So wherever we went, that's a memory that I cherish. Maybe somebody else might remember it, not like that, but just in our platoons, we were always singing. In our hall, we were always singing. And most of the times hymns. And that was also, no matter what the circumstances were, no matter where we were at, that was also something that's part of Soul Call's identity that we kept. So no matter if we're out in infantry school, I don't think they ever heard such a beautiful noise when this woman came and they just sang away their troubles. But that's also one thing that I can, fondly remember of that. Also a funny story that I can tell is we were at one point in time, we came back from infantry school and we had to give back all our kit and all of that we used. And we were tired, we were very tired, and we had to stand in a line, and we always had a student of the day. It was before we had ranks or anything. And then your responsibility would be to get your platoon to where they need to be at the exact time, and all of that. And that day it was my turn to be student of the day. And us being tired and have to carry all this stuff. And now we went to the how can I say, the log store. We stood in front there, and wherever our superiors, if I can say it like that, so our lieutenants or corporals or whatever, whenever they would come in the vicinity, you had to bring your platoon to attention and then salute them if it's an officer. And one of our officers came from lunch break, and he drove past, and in me seeing him, I brought my platoon to attention and I saluted him and everything, and in my mind he ignored me, but maybe he just didn't see us. And I was so despondent because I'm doing my job and I'm trying to do it good, and we're tired, and and I was so despondent at that point in time. And I just bowed my head and I say, oh, this arsehole, excuse my language. But and when I turned around, one of the corporals was standing right behind me. So you can imagine that I didn't see the light that day until I was like dead tired from being chased from pillar to post that day. So that lieutenant ended up going with me to the military academy, and that actually became his nickname from me. Became his nickname. So we ended up being very good friends, but it's just one of those things where you can't help yourself. So from my South Call years, I went to the military academy. That was also a story in itself, because I met my husband when I was still in high school. After matric, he went to the military, so he was in the military, but I actually was very good friends with his sister. So I knew him from I was about, say, standard 5, grade 7. And then when he went to infantry school after matric, we actually started writing letters to each other and actually starting to see that maybe there's some potential. So hence the saying, me saying in the beginning, I did not listen to my mother when she said never marry a military man. We kept our relationship. He went with me to our matric farewell, and when I went to South Call, he went on his route, and we ended up going to special forces training and all of that. So we kept in contact the whole time. And when I had to decide if I wanted to go to the military academy, once again it was far for me. Because he was stationed in White River at that point in time. His parents moved there, And so yeah, he went out of the military after that. But so it was far for me. I didn't want to go far away from my boyfriend, and but then, so I was enrolled to go to Tux to study BCom accounting. So I really had to listen to my father and not study acting. But so I was enrolled at Tux for BCom accounting. And then the opportunity came to go to the military academy. And up until the day that we left on the Flossie, the C-130 to go to fly out to the military academy, I actually wasn't sure if that was the right decision. So I had to leave my boyfriend behind, and all of that. But once again, if I think back, it was the best decision of my life. Being at the military academy, you get to study, and get paid for it. So not a lot. So the military academy students were always the rich students because we had a salary, we could buy cars and stuff like that. So compared to the other students at Stellenbosch, we were like the rich kids. But yeah, in saying that, it was some of the best years of my life. I ended up doing the military sciences, the management sciences course, because I was actually very fond of books and accounting and all of that. We had awesome lecturers, awesome lecturers. We had some funny lecturers. Our lecturer that gave us a cost and management accounting, he was so funny. He always came into class with a joke. Not always above the belt. So we were only 3 girls in the class, the rest were all men. And he would always say to us, just look out of the window, the 3 of you, just look out of the window, focus on the ocean. I just want to quickly tell the guys a joke. And then, it was always so funny. So always at lunchtime, everybody wanted to know, what Colonel Legransi was saying, what was his latest joke. So, but yeah, we had awesome lecturers, experts at their field. Just, some of them went off to the Stellenbosch, the business school. And we had really awesome lecturers. We were not very fond of military strategy always, but we had to have it, and it had its place, because once again, in me coming back to identity, the military academy had to keep its identity, and we were still soldiers, we were still in uniform. And although our other subjects, like cost and management accounting and business management and all those subjects, they were, as it was presented from the University of Stellenbosch, we still had to keep our military identity. And that was a good thing. We also did military law. I loved subjects where I would, understand subjects like maths and accounting and those type of things. So I didn't like the ones, and also military strategy, I didn't like the ones where you really had to put effort in and study for. And military law was also one of those things. The law's the law. You can't, there's no gray involved. You can't put your own opinion or interpretation into it. So also from my point of view, we had military law, and I didn't really like studying at that point in time. You were a student. I mean, there was so much to do, in Saldanha. We had a life. So I had my first car, so I had wheels and we could do a lot of things. So I didn't like studying. But military law ended up biting me in the back, because I did so bad in my semester test, and it was a year subject. So the first semester test went horrific, second semester test horrific, and the third one as well. And I can remember our lecturer was Major Brits at that point in time, also a very brilliant mind in terms of law and military law and overall law. He came to me and he said to me, you know what, there's only one test left. make it count. And that day, so I really put in effort. I really put in effort for the last semester test. And you had to have 40% mark to be able to be allowed to write the exam. So you must now know how bad I did in the previous subjects, in the previous semester tests. And I really made an effort to study. I studied, I put everything in. I said, okay, I'm taking my interpretation out of this and I'm studying this law now. And I ended up getting like a distinction for that semester test. And I ended up having like about a 41 mark that allowed me with 1% into the exams. And I can remember him putting the paper on my desk and he flipped it like that. And he said to me, Borman, jy het hom uit die put uit gaan haal. So it just means in English that I really took it out of the well, to get the mark. But I ended up passing military law. So yeah, but yeah, I still have a lot of friends from the military academy, fond memories, awesome times. We really had a brilliant time, and we also stuck to what we knew. We had awesome parades, we had awesome functions, and exposed to a lot of things. We had weeks where we, if it's a small holiday, they would usually give us opportunity for training. So you could do berede cursus, I can't think of the English word now, with the horses. So you could do a course in that. Or we had a course where we went to Hermanus to do that, to do ocean orientation, that type of thing as well. So we were exposed to a lot of things, and they really made an effort to train us in other things or expose us to other things. During that time, my father was at Special Forces. So me wanting to be close to my boyfriend always coerced him to, please, can I just work at Special Forces, because that was in Pretoria. Their head office were in Pretoria. So I ended up in the long holidays, the June, July holidays, I ended up working at Special Forces, most of the time in the ops room. And there I met a lot of awesome characters. They were always friendly, always willing to share knowledge with me. And being in the ops room, I was working with Major Schulenberg at the time, and he was such an awesome mentor. And that was actually special times for me working in the ops room, in terms of being exposed to the heart of where everything happens and the decision making. And yes, sometimes I was told to go and take a walk or where it didn't concern me. But I was really in the heart of it. And I really met the people in person. I really met how can I say, them at a different level. And very, very much treasured times. Interesting from my point of view as well, being in uniform and being in the military, is while studying or with studying financials, I went to the finance corps of the SANDF. So I did that core training while I was still at Solve Corps. We had a section where we did core training, where the infantry guys went to infantry, where you wanted to go. And I decided finance corps because, once again, that was in Pretoria and it was close to my boyfriend. So that shaped my decisions. But I don't look back on it. And so the finance corps demilitarized when we were, I think, in our final year. They demilitarized and they made them civilian. So they centralized all of that functions again. And I can remember that as being like a yay moment for me. So I was a full lieutenant at the time, but with my surname being Borman and being, you have to carry your surname on your uniform. they associated me with the Borman family. So, yeah, I don't know always if it was a good thing or a bad thing. So for me, it was a yay moment when I could go out of uniform. But we finished our year in uniform at the military academy, and then, yeah, I can remember handing out all my uniform to all my friends. You know, who wants this, who wants that, and then we started in January. After we finished studying, we started in civilian clothes. So, yeah, so I ended up leaving the military as a civilian. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And I would love to continue our discussions and bring some of my former Solvcall mates on board to just discuss a bit more on their experience, as well as my military academy friends, especially from a woman's point of view. I think, like you said in the intro, it's so important to showcase women in uniform and our role. And there's a lot of my friends or some of my fellow intake members that actually went very, very far in uniform, and I would love to introduce you to them as well and bring them on board to hear their experiences as well. You know, so they did very well in their careers. There's a lot of my friends that went to infantry school in that year, with me saying that they decided to make our training uniform, men and women alike. They allowed women to go to infantry school for training as well, and if they wanted to stay on as Solvcall instructors, they actually had to go to infantry school. So quite a lot of my friends and some of my fellow intake members went that route and actually are very, very successful within infantry, and within that career path. So I would love to introduce you to them, and connect you with them so that you can hear their stories. Also, what I just want to put in here as well is women of color, and it's, for us, it was not a new thing, because obviously they opened up it to everybody, to come for training and to come to Solvcall and all of that. And we made such good friends. For us, it was never about color. We were in this together. We were as a unit together and made such awesome friends. I can just remember we always had to have our long hair plaited very neatly, especially for parades and so forth. And you know what? There's nobody that can plait as well as somebody of color. So it was always some of them's job to plait our hairs, because you didn't even need hairspray, because if they plaited your hair would be immaculate for that day. So, but I would love to introduce you to some of them as well and their careers, and just share so that they can have a voice and share their experiences as well. But thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope we speak again.
Yeah, you're not just going to disappear here. We're going to ask you a few questions now.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And we'll start with infantry school. Because your dad once said to me, Chris, it's the school of infantry. So I was just laughing when he said that. But did you ever feel, because you were female, that the men perhaps were a bit helpful about you playing a role in the army?
I think they did. It was always a matter of, let's try this and see if it works. It was always, and remember, this is just my opinion, or this is just my experience, but it was always, okay, well, you know what? Everybody says you need to be as tough as the men, so let's see if you can be. And I would love to believe, and I can really, give testimony to the fact that I think we were. We took the challenge and we stood up to it. It was not easy for us. It's, for us women, we like to bath or have a shower every day, but being in the veld or that type of thing, it doesn't allow you to. But then we needed to adjust, we needed to adapt, so I think it was, if I, and it can be for the years as well, but this is just in my experience, and for us being the first or, you know, of Solvable having to, you know, take on board that methodology and that doctrine of, now we need to integrate you, you know, you need to do the same. You can't because men always think, I think they would think that we had preferential treatment. They always looked at Solvable as how can I say, etiquette school, school of etiquette, if I need to bring in my father's voice here. But we I think we proved a point. And in saying that, I'm proud to say that I think we proved them wrong, but we still kept to who we were. We still kept the essence of being a woman and being female, you know, and I think that brought a different flavor. Maybe the men might not have always liked the flavor, you know, but I think it brought a different dynamic to the type of training and to what they always set out to be. And once again, now it brings in my how can I say, agility capabilities that I were taught. But I think change is always a good thing, and I think change brings in the new. And I think some of them might have been so set in their ways. This is how we do it. This is what you need to look like. This is what you need to dress like, you know, that type of thing. And I think the flavor that we brought in was to say, you know what, it can look different. Our defense force can have a unified front with men and women combined. So I would love to hear some of the men's, you know, some of their point of view. And I think what would be interesting is to especially hear from the Solvable, my intake ladies that went into a career of infantry, and how they were perceived initially and where they ended up. I think that would be very, very interesting. But what I can say is that they became successful, and that says to me that they were given a chance, they were given an opportunity, and it also tells me that they grabbed it and ran with it.
Well, they most welcome you. I would actually welcome all of them. I would really love to speak to them, and if they're listening, yeah, there's an open invitation. Please come and tell us, because it is a part of the army and the defense force which people are not really speaking about on legacy. So really come and talk to us. But now lastly, Antonet, what advice do you have for a young girl listening to you now and she says, man, I want to be in the army? What would you tell her to do?
I would tell her to grab the opportunity, especially from my point of view. If you don't know what you want to do, or where you want to go to, sometimes, you know, we are confused. Some kids, if you speak to them today, some matric students or whatever, high school students, they know exactly where they want to go to, but others don't necessarily. But the skills, and not to say that it will shape you or give you a military career, but the skills that you get taught, you know, the identity of the military and what they stand for, discipline, following processes, you know, thinking logically, thinking strategically about things. That's stuff that's skills that I was taught when I was 18, 19 years old, that I still to this day use in my everyday life, in my career, in, you know, in how I teach my children. So I would say grab the opportunity. I would say do it. It's not easy, you know, it's basic training. If you're comfortable at home and you know, you have your certain set ways of how you do things, yes, your cage will be rattled. I can really tell you that, but rattled in a good way. And it opens up your mind to other possibilities. So I would say go for it. I would say I would say it really gives you an opportunity to broaden your thinking. And as I said to you, if I clang to my relationship and you know, to my boyfriend at that point in time, luckily he became my husband. But if I clang to that, if I think back and in preparing for this discussion or thinking about this discussion, it made me think as well, what if I did things differently? And I don't think I would have ended up being the person that I am today. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the choices, and I'm grateful for the awesome, experiences that I got to live through. And just me being a military child, to go back to that as well, it gave me a different insight from another point of view into the military. And you will never get that while standing, on the outside. And no, I would encourage that, definitely.
One thing I've seen with military females is they are proud. They are exceptionally proud of the opportunity which they had to serve. And that's a good thing, because I don't always see that with the men, I'm sad to say.
I think, you know what, I think once again, it was instilled in us. It was really instilled in us. In everything we did, it was instilled in us. I cannot talk of the years after self-call, were no longer there. But just from a self-call identity point of view, it was instilled in us. That excellence. They always spoke about Esti Parati, and that was that statue, where she saluted. That excellence was instilled in us, and that proudness, that walking with your shoulders back and your chest out and upright, just from a from a body perspective, that was instilled on us from the first day. And I think that's what we carry through. And that's the flavor that I love that it brought to the table, because we are proud. We are proud that we're doing what we're doing. And while saying, about the multitasking, but it is something that a woman's good at. She's good at being the voice, being on the front lines, if you want to say it like that, but also having that softness as a mother, that nurturing, that type of thing. And I think that's what makes us proud, in the fact that we are still there and we are still fighting the good fight with what was instilled in us when we was actually still stupid and young, if I can say it like that.
Well, Antonet, we've come to the end of Antonet. I'm sure she will bring her friends to us. What a wonderful personality. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And as I always say to you people, if you have a story, come and tell us about it. Don't think you are unimportant. Don't think just because you didn't serve in special forces, or you were perhaps some kind of honoris causa holder, that you're unimportant, your legacy. Really, you're not. Just come and tell us your story that our grandchildren and everybody else can know about it. That's how we can write the history. That's what we're doing here at Legacy. So Antonet, thank you. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate you. Until we meet again, God bless.